This episode of ACMG Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.
This is Tom Gibbous, the voice of Shikamaru Nara from Naruto, and you are listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. And it's not a drag.
This week, I go into the battle of Best Buy for a chance to finally get my hands on a PS5. Did I succeed? We'll talk about all the crazy details involving that and the results. Plus, we also talk about the big third-person elephant in the room as Cyberpunk 2077 went viral not only on social media, but also news outlets everywhere. We talk about that and why fans as well as game companies should wait and not rush for the progress of the game development of any title. All this and more as ACMG presents Talk Time Live Extra. Select Start.
Welcome to the show to give you all the news, views, and opinions in the world of gaming. This is ACMG presents Talk Time Live Extras. Select Start with your host, Xavier Josiah. Power up and game on.
Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Select Start. I am your host, Xavier Josiah. I hope everybody's having somewhat of a peaceful week. We are just 7 days away from 2020's version of Christmas, whatever the hell that entails. And with that said, I hope everybody has or is having a great holiday season and hopes that you will remain safe and keep all your family safe and just enjoy the holiday for what it is and just anticipate what 2021 can bring us with an even better holiday season, even better things to come if we all do the right things. Shout out to all the healthcare workers out there, the first responders out there, and the frontline workers, the essential workers out there. You know, happy holidays to all of you, and I really hope and pray that you are all having a great holiday, or will have a great holiday to that extent, because you damn sure deserve it more than anybody right now. With that said, we got a crazy episode to talk about. Not much in terms of gaming news, because there's only one hot form of gaming news that everybody is talking about right now. And there's so much to the point that the main focus of this show is going to be based upon that. And that is, of course, Cyberpunk 2077. Mostly for the PlayStation 4 at this point. And I say that for a lot of reasons, because I'm playing it on the PS4 right now. And it's just one of those things that has to be talked about, because we talked about it before with Marvel Avengers. But in our final stage segment, it's going to be a soft review of Cyberpunk 2077. But the bigger focus is going to be about the wait versus the rush. And that means, you know, as fans and game developers, having the patience to wait until a game comes out fully finished, as opposed to rushing in it and being disappointed as a fan and a consumer. So that's going to be the main focus, and I definitely want you to stay around to listen to that, because there's a lot to be said as to how game developers should be handling it and how us as game consumers should be handling it as well. So stay tuned for that as well. But before we do that, we got to talk about what I entitle the Battle of Best Buy. And I say this because it's been a while since I had such an epic experience like this from an online purchasing situation. And as you guys know, I've yet to own a PlayStation 5 yet, due to a lot of reasons. A lot of them being I just was not at the right place at the right time, and things fell through. This is my 4th attempt to get a PlayStation 5, and the actual 3rd attempt with Best Buy. The 4th attempt, as you guys remember, was Walmart, which honestly was not my first plan of action to get a PlayStation 5. I didn't want to go to Walmart. I am not a fan of Walmart for a lot of reasons, especially just the environment in itself. But I wanted to get a Best Buy because the way that they're handling it is from curbside. You get curbside pickup right there. It's usually in a more safer environment than others, and the way that they handle their stuff is really well. The way that they handle their stuff online, to some extent, is a bit questionable, but there is a means to their method, and their method is to try to psych out bots and bot buying. So I kind of get what they did. Now, granted, that doesn't mean what they did at execution worked out, because it didn't work out for everybody. And it's still not. But like I said, this was the third attempt for Best Buy, the fourth in its totality. The first time I missed out due to retail companies selling them online early. If you guys remember, it was scheduled to come out at a specific day. Like the very next, I think the day after the release date, the actual release date for the PlayStation. And in fact, Walmart went out of their way, or Target went out of their way to sell it early. For what reason, I don't know. I don't understand what the reason was. They claim for it to be a glitch. I will seriously doubt that, and I will not believe that to this day. But it was what it was. You got the first edition, the first wave of gamers getting the system. Worked out. They still got the money. That's fine. The second time, they announced that the day they were going to sell them, but not the time, which ended up turning out to be 5:30 in the morning. And this is Best Buy doing it, by the way. Best Buy sold the units at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. Damn if a certain amount of people got a chance to get this at 5:30. Like, you had to have waken up, and that was the running joke. You would had to have waken up to go to the bathroom, check your computer, check your or your phone, only to see, like, oh my God, it's available. Let me get it while I'm going to the bathroom. And that's exactly what happened right there. That is the best case scenario of how people were able to get it back then and to find it during that time. 5:30 in the morning. Who the hell is up at 5:30 in the morning except for people who have to go to work? But we're in COVID era, so not everybody is going to be driving out to facilities for working because everybody's working at home. So that's the best case scenario for that. Then I tried Walmart, which was a complete bust, as the bot buyers brought up all of the units, or majority of the units, in less than 30 seconds of the time Walmart announced it, which was like literally at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And note, all online purchases would have resulted in you ordering the console and having it delivered, which is something I didn't want to do. I wanted to do curbside pickup. I wanted it in my hands. I don't want to trust it to delivery services such as UPS or FedEx. If you guys recall, I had this problem a while back where we ordered online because of the riots and everything that happened a while back. We were only able to order like a MacBook and all that stuff online from Apple. Apple mails it via FedEx. Some reason, one of my items, which was a Apple AirPod Pros, never came, even though it was scanned delivered. So if that item is as hot as that item is, I'll be damned if I have a PlayStation 5 being delivered to me. I will be in such a wreck waiting for this to come. I couldn't do it. So Best Buy was the best choice, and it still is. So then it came to this Tuesday, when I had yet another chance to acquire a new gen console. Best Buy told customers on Twitter that they would be ready to sell more consoles after 8 a.m. Central Time, which is 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's an hour difference. Of course, they did not I would say in order to throw off any chance of bot buying the consoles up like they did with Walmart, they decided to not really tell the time. They just said after the time of 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It could be any time after that. And it damn sure was. It was annoying, yet understandable due to the circumstances. So, it is the saying, it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. This led to me stationing at this very desk that I'm talking in right now, hitting the F5 button on my keyboard to refresh the Best Buy website for an accumulation in the amount of 4 hours straight. I seriously felt like George Jetson just pushing the one button until it was time to clock out for the entire day. It really did feel like that. I started even putting up like GIFs on the ACMG Facebook group showing George Jetson doing it and saying like, this is me right now. Or there was another one with Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles doing the exact same thing. And that was like about 2 hours later of me doing it. I was still doing it. But after 4 hours, they finally opened the site and sell. This was not an easy mission, I'm telling you now. And those who are listening may have actually tried to get it themselves, and they understand this. It is not easy. And this process can only be compared to acquiring tickets and badges to San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, WrestleMania, or even UFC. If any of you ever tried to attend any of those major big events that usually consumes of like hundreds of thousands of people attending, and even though millions want to come, only a few hundred can make it if they can get the tickets right. The intensity is real, and it was that type of feel with thousands of hopeful gamers trying to get a lock onto the console and add it to their cart. It was nothing short of challenging. After about like maybe 15 to 20 minutes, I finally managed to click on the add to cart button, because every time, the bad part was whenever you click the refresh button, because of all of the other ads and additions to and attachments and widgets to the actual website, it takes all of them time to load, so it all gets pulled down and you can't have an accurate time to click on the button in time, and then it goes gray telling you to wait while you're doing it, and you got to wait for it to go yellow, but you're refreshing it and refreshing it and refreshing it and refreshing it. And I managed to actually click on it to get on cart. However, that was far from it actually finishing, as the website kept locking and freezing during the overwhelming use from other people trying to get the systems itself. But I was far from giving up. I kept refreshing the hell out of it as my items remained in the cart, even after the system froze and crashed for like a minute or two. It was heart-wrenching, to say the least. After another few minutes, I was able to get it into the next stage of the purchase, which was the checkout. However, I was not yet at the finish line, as the system once again crashed, leaving an error message informing me that that we were trying to fix the problem and just try again later, meaning keep refreshing the damn thing once again. At this point, my heart began to like beat faster and louder, as if I was in like Edgar Allan Poe's Tall Tale Heart. It was like you just looking around like, where is that coming? Oh, that's me. I slightly began to panic, like for real. I started to panic just a tiny bit, as I was so close to getting it, yet it felt like it was going away from me. This is the equivalent of going fishing and catching a big bass that has the strength to pull you into the water if you do not have the power and stamina to withhold it and try to keep the longevity of that process. Whew. I'm actually just like, I'm going through the motions just talking about it right now. After a few more minutes of getting back and forth, I made it to the next stage, which allowed me to put in and add my credit card information. I quickly entered in that stuff as fast as possible. My credit card was right in front of me to make sure that I entered all the correct information. And suddenly, boom, I made it to the end. It was finally over. I actually did it. I now have a PS5 ready for me. It was an all-time high. I even called my wife. Seriously, I felt like I don't know why this is, but for some reason, it actually felt like I achieved something. I won something, even though I'm paying for something. It's weird. It's really weird how that feels. It's like I didn't really win anything. I didn't win a world title. I didn't win first place at a triathlon or a marathon or whatever. I managed to get a system that I paid for. So the incentive is that I managed to get it, but I felt like I was fighting in a sports competition. It's just insane. I called my wife to tell her the news, and she couldn't believe that I actually got it either because of all the craziness going on. All was thought to be like well until I received an email, and this email said that my credit card info didn't go through due to misinformation, and I quickly hung up with her and to resolve this expeditiously. Despite all of the info that was in the card being correct, the system was not taking it for some reason. I had the funds in there. I was able to do it. For some reason, it just wasn't taking it. The 3-digit identification number wasn't allowed to go through, even though it was legit for real. Like, and I, I had all the dates and everything right, the expiration dates and everything. It just was. But I didn't panic because, thank goodness, I actually had another card to use, and that actually worked. So this situation that happened, this particular situation that happened, felt like every action or horror movie that we ever saw, where you thought the bad guy, that you thought you ended the bad guy or the villain, only for the villain to come back for one last shot or attempt to kill you. And just like every formulaic ending to those films, the good guy managed to dodge the proverbial bullet. and now I am a part of the new generation of gamers. I tell you what, man, what a freaking rush. It's been some time since I felt like that. I don't know what to take. And I honestly still feel like it didn't happen, and it's surreal. I can't quite understand why this whole thing had to be this exhilarating, but it was. I don't know if I'm actually for it or against it, but it actually happened. I managed to finally get a PS5, and I'm excited. I'm extremely excited for it. And 2021 in games. But see, here's the thing. As I mentioned before, I knew that I was eventually going to get it. It was only a matter of time, and just had to be patient, like I said. Even if I had to wait until January to get it, and to just get it in store or whatever, once everybody gets it, that would have been fine too. But, I wanted to play the game. I took the chance, and I managed to win. So, I will say, as much as I didn't like it, I understood what Best Buy was doing, and, kudos to them for at least being aggressive enough to try to get those bots to not access everything so quickly. And it was a wild ride, man. It was a wild ride. So I can't wait to finally start playing the new generation of games when 2001 hits as well. So the only other news I have for this segment is about Mortal Kombat the movie, which I talked about a while back in previous episodes. And I had the belief that I was told that this was going to be out next month. Well, new reports revealed that Mortal Kombat the movie will be released on April 16th, 2021, and not January 15th, 2021. And as some sources have reported, the movie will be released in theaters and in HBO Max on the same day. So that is still happening. Whether that's going to nip them in the butt, I don't know, because, with the vaccines coming and things going to be changed. By the time April comes, we'll know if the vaccines are effective or not. And that will also tell us what theaters are going to be doing and what, these studios are going to be doing. But right now, Warner Brothers, HBO is locked on to the idea that they will be showing all of their movies both on HBO Max and on in theaters. So we will see how this goes. Anything can happen at this point. So, all right, I'm going to take a breather and we're going to take a break. And when we come back during our final stage segment, we're going to have what I call the wait versus the rush discussion about game development and fan anticipation. So let me take a breather from this whole situation, and we'll come back right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, the host of ACMG Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our ACMG content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things ACMG.
Talk Time Live.
Welcome to the final stage of this program. We will be talking about a lot of things. I will be reviewing or giving a soft review of Cyberpunk 2077. I say soft because I have played it enough to give it a review. I have not finished the game, I should say, due to a lot of reasons. As one of which, as I mentioned, I have a PlayStation 5, so I haven't yet to play it on there to see the contrast and comparison, but I have played it enough on the PlayStation 4 to warrant my thoughts on this so far. So we will talk about that, and we will also be discussing the wait versus the rush of game development and fan anticipation. As many in the gaming community know, the biggest news coming this week involves the game developer CD Projekt Red, who is under heavy fire with gamers complaining about the poor performances of the game due to a number of glitches and bugs that occurs throughout the experience of that game. I have encountered myself playing the PlayStation 4 version of the game and posted on the ACMG Facebook group showing screen prints of my gameplay in which it shows enemies being stuck in walls, almost like as if Thanos actually snapped his fingers or waved the Infinity Gauntlet and they just morphed into the wall. There were some bad things about it. So much so, one of my members, Anthony Whitaker, in the ACMG Facebook group, calls them the glitch mob. I like the idea of that. I really like the idea of that name. Because of the high volume of these occurrences, the company was forced to not only apologize, but to offer refunds to anyone who complained about the bugs and glitches in the game. Rightfully shown. To all of those who did, kudos to you, because that's exactly what you should be doing. You paid a lot of money to suspend your disbelief into a world without having these interruptions in there. I mean, some of you paid from $60 to $100 or even more for these games, and you deserve and should demand better. And that's what we're going to talk about, but it's how you do it and what you should do is what we're going to discuss here. The game itself was pre-ordered up to 8 million times, myself included in that. As of 6 days ago, and as a result of the occurrences, CD Projekt Red stock fell to approximately 29%. That's a lot. That is that's a dent. That's more than it. That's a chunk. That's a chunk being taken out of your leg. That's millions, if not billions, of dollars being taken out of your stock. That's not good at all. That's beyond not good. The biggest glitches and bugs come in the form of genitalia, which for some reason, the game developers felt it was something that they wanted to add into the game. For those who have not played this game yet, but may have seen screenshots or whatever like that, the game gives you the ability to add gender genitalia to your character, giving you the freedom of creating your own gender identity, which is a cool idea, yet it fell in its execution. The confusion part of this with me is the understanding of whether there is any other purpose for that option. Like, is there a sex mini game that, mode like, a la God of War, where they're like God of War? I can understand if God of War had this type of feature. I can understand why there was a need to put like genitalia in there, because if you played any of the old, the God of War games, that was one of the deals. He banged a bunch of women. I could understand having that type of feature on there. This game, it was just like having it just for the sake of having it. It was just an added feature, or maybe just a sign of support of gender identity, and which is fine. But it's just like, all right, it's one of those things that you meant it to be well, but it didn't really do exactly. It didn't execute the way that you wanted to, and having it just for the sake of having it just seems meaningless when you could have just given folks the bio option to just select the character's gender identity rather actually show it. So in other words, you could have just, if he was a male character, or he looked like a male character, but in these settings, you said he recognizes him, the character recognizes himself as female, that's fine. Or gender neutral, or, whatever, that's fine. That would have been more than enough. You didn't have to add the actual thing, especially if there's no purpose for it in the process of the game. It's just like, okay, we can add a penis, we can add a vagina to it. That's it. That's our. There really was no purpose for it other than just to be there. And as a result, one of the glitches from that is that the collision detection of the clothing showed right through. Like there were pictures of your genitalia being shown through the pants and everything, that was the layers of pants and everything that was in there, or you would see female boobs showing through the shirts of the characters. So that was a major glitch on their part. That well, first of all, there is no kid that should be playing this game at all. There's no kid. Like, this game is the equivalent of, like, I grew up in the 80s, and as a kid of the 80s, like, if any of you are my age in the 40s that are listening to this right now, you know exactly what I'm about to get at with this. This is the equivalent of watching movies like Porky's back in the day, or Police Academy, or any movie that had some type of sexual content in there that we were forbidden to watch. If we had VHS tapes or whatever like that, we were forbidden to watch it. And guess what? It made us want to watch it even more. This idea will probably make kids want to play this game even more now because of these aforementioned glitches and bugs that are going on. This news, I want to note that this news of Cyberpunk 2077 got so widespread that not only media outlets were covering it, but the host of The Daily Show, the one and only Trevor Noah, one of my favorite comedians of this era, even made mention of it. And of all things, he made mention of it on the Obama episode when he interviewed President Obama. I thought it was hilarious. I was not expecting him to cover. Now, granted, Trevor Noah is a gamer. He's a hardcore gamer. That's no big news. And he tends to reference games on the show from time to time, but not actually cover it. And it speaks volumes when it's so big that they cover it. And that makes me wonder, like, Saturday Night Live's coming. I wonder if they're going to cover that as well. And if they cover it, that's even bigger, in my opinion. So that's interesting. But I do want to say Trevor made a great point. The genitalia glitches in that game, when people our age were kids, like I mentioned before, he referred to the kids in this generation as soft. And I thought this was him joking, of course. And he considered them soft because, back in the day, like I just mentioned with the Porkies and the Police Academy, we would have actually went crazy to see something like that in video games. Now, he's assuming, of course, that kids are actually playing this. And if you're a kid playing this, then I question the parents, because the parents should know about these games. Shout out to all of the gaming parents out there, because they know better, or they should know better. There's no reason that a responsible parent should let their kid play Cyberpunk 2077. There's no reason. There was, I should have mentioned this before in the other segment, but there was also reports that a kid actually brought $16,000 of in-app purchases from a mobile Sonic the Hedgehog game. $16,000. Now, due to the circumstances, and somebody in our ACMG Facebook group mentioned this before and thought that the companies will get sued for this. And I disagreed because this happened years after the original incident that's very similar to this happened with Smurf Village. If you remember when mobile games became a big thing, the genesis of mobile games became a thing. Also the genesis of in-app purchases came too. And there at the time was no parental lock, so when a kid plays a Smurf Village, they were able to siphon a large amount of money of in-app purchases because there were no parental guidance and blocks in the system at the time. There were kids that were spending that amount of money in there. And then after that, companies were sued for that. And then later on, a lot more it became standard issue that mobile game developers would actually factor in a parental guidance, giving a disclaimer and warning and settings so kids would not be able to do what just happened here with that game. So in this case, if the game has those features, then that means it is not the fault of the game company. It is the fault of the parents that didn't watch their kids as they were playing this game. And at this point, I think it's going to be the parents' fault. And just like that, any kid that is playing Cyberpunk 2077, I question the responsibility of the adult. Plain and simple. They should not be playing this game at all. So, with that said, now I decided to be the one that invests in this game. Despite my lack of enjoyment of third-person shooters, there's only a few. I think Overwatch is probably the only game that I've really enjoyed because, one, I like the game. I did like the gameplay element. It wasn't that too complex. It was a lot of fun. You didn't take it seriously. And I'm not an esport guy either, so I wasn't going to take it seriously. The only thing I didn't like about it is that it didn't have a single player feature in there, which is said to be happening with Overwatch 2. So they're going to have a story element in that game has not come out yet either, and I know people want to, but guess what? Let them take their time with that game after the results of this. Okay, so that's what this discussion is going to be all about. And the other reason why I think I'd invested in this, because there's no surprise that the casting of Keanu Reeves was a major part that drew me in. And not only at the look of the game and all that stuff, and I did read a while back that they were going to do just more than just first-person shooter. There was going to be some really extent melee elements to it, which there is. So I gave it a try. And though things are, that there are things that need to be needs constant troubleshooting, I found that the story to be the reason why I kept playing after a while. But it, after a while, started to be not enough because of the glitches and everything that was going on. And the crash, I believe I got like 1 or 2 crashes in the game when I was playing it. And take note, this is PlayStation 4. This thing eats 100 gigs of memory from the system. So I do want to point that out, regardless if I have a terabyte or not. And I just invested in a 4 terabyte drive right now. So I can't call it. When it came down to the gameplay, I was still not really that convinced that this was a genre I could get into. Yet, it has some gameplay elements that made the experience a little bit easier for me to get into. While I hate the stealth in the game, the melee combat is better than other first-person shooter games that I have attempted to play. I actually enjoyed hacking and slashing more than the shooting aspect. As I played through the game, I could not help but to feel like it was more of a chore to play through after a while, especially when driving through Megalopolis. I'm gonna butcher this, Megalopolis at best, and it's probably the only time I say that name of the city. I've played many open world games with driving capabilities. The driving mechanics felt a little bit too complex for me, yet you're listening to a person who does not drive a real car. So just want to point that out. It could be just me not being a non-driver at this case. Now, as I say this, of course, I have played other open world games like Batman Arkham Knights, No More Heroes, Final Fantasy 15, and others that had driving mechanics that I felt was more enjoyable and easier to control. The one enjoyable thing I can say about driving is riding through the city, playing the music and the radio stations, particularly the hip-hop stations. The music in there I thought was really well done. It was quality music that, you know, I could get into the groove with. So much so that when I got out of the car, I was quite disappointed that all the music went away because I got out of the car and I had to experience more of the story, which didn't involve any music sometimes. It had a bit of a theatrical tone to it. So meaning that there are times where you're going to hear music and there are other times where you're not. I mean, honestly, if it was up to me, I could just drive all through the city and just enjoy the music and only come out to, you know, cut off people's head. Pretty much. One other plus to Cyberpunk 2077 that I will give is when playing Keanu Reeves' character Johnny Silverhand. It may be the most fun part of the game because whenever they do flashbacks and you get a chance to play as Johnny Silverhand, his character is in complete God mode, as he is able to take out as many enemies as possible very easily with just one blow of this gun that just seems like easy, like headshots, easy body blows, and he's just no joke in this game. Like, I wish I could play him throughout the whole entire game. I think I would enjoy the game way more than just doing it that way. Despite the bad graphics that look like you were playing it on the Nintendo Switch handheld mode, plus a number of bugs and glitches, there was actually something slightly worth playing into that sort of kind of immersed me in. But every time I started getting immersed into the game, a glitch or a bug or a crash took me out of it, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So consider this part one of my game review of this game, because as I mentioned, I got a PlayStation 5 now, and eventually I will update the game to be played on air. So I get to see all the new lighting, the new graphic textures, the ray tracing, and all that jazz on there. See if it made a difference. But, you know, as far as the PlayStation 4 is concerned, if I give this an overall grade right now, I would have to give it a solid D, because there's a lot of things that's a problem with the PlayStation 4 version, and they were wrong for even releasing this game. It should never have been for the PlayStation 4 if they were going to do this. So maybe on the PlayStation 5, Steam, or even the Xbox Series X version will be better, but, you know, on a more powerful platform. But from what I'm hearing, otherwise, to be continued on that note. But I'm hearing it's all around the board that people are having these problems with. So this brings to the discussion of this all. So we have yet another big budget AAA game that fans were anticipating, only for it to be a bust due to basically, you know, game developers rushing to get it out. We already saw the results of Marvel Avengers, which has also met more, and dare I say, just as bad, if not worse, than what you saw from playing Cyberpunk 2077. The only difference between those two games is that we did not see Captain America or even a Hawk flash their penis through their clothing, or even Black Widow's boobs come through the costumes. You know, so to that credit, I guess they got it on there. But we keep seeing these big budget memory eating games come out way too soon with disappointing results. And you think with games with over 100 gigs of memory would be a fantastic experience and worthwhile investment to your gaming. Sadly, that's not the case. I honestly, I would not know actually. I would not know it unless, you know, told directly. But it almost feels like the strategy of these development companies are to release the games unfinished and work on it along the way, which sounds like it's going live while still in beta testing mode. But they're not calling it beta testing. They're not calling it a beta status. They're just calling it a finished release game, and they're upgrading it along the way. So this is the moral and ethical part of these game companies not being true, being upfront with us, saying that this game is not finished, but also making us play a game that they're claiming that is finished, and it is not. I don't know where this business practice started or why it is a good idea to start this, and it only really what it does is that it tells us how these gaming companies, or what these companies think of their consumer base and their fan base, because they don't think too much of us if they're going to bring this out unfinished and then make us believe that it's finished and we're just going to settle for it. And they rely on the idea that we're going to settle for it, that we're going to defend it. And unfortunately, a minority of people do. And that's the sad part, because they really shouldn't at the end of the day. If many of you listeners seen the graphic that I made for this episode, you will notice that I focused on Final Fantasy VII Remake versus Cyberpunk 2077. I did that to focus on the comparing of the two big budget games that had almost equal amount of fan anticipation. However, the contrast comes in the form of time, attention to detail, patience, and overall quality and care on behalf of the development staff of each game company. And let's talk about Final Fantasy VII as an example. Final Fantasy VII debuted in 1997 with high acclaim for its groundbreaking production. The game was so successful that fans have been clamoring for a modern-day remake. And after 23 years, and after a decade of developing Final Fantasy 15, which was one of their first open world action RPG games of the franchise, I should say, developers Square Enix took their God-given time, as they are known to do, to finally give us the remake we've been asking for 23 years. It took them 5 years to develop and remake that iconic game world into an entire reimagined 3D experience, while also not rushing it to get it out. And I believe that Final Fantasy 15 was almost like the template for that gave them the okay to say that we can do a modern Final Fantasy 15 remake, because Final Fantasy 15 was phenomenally done. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I believe it was one of, if not the games of the year for me. It's one of the best Final Fantasy games I've ever played up until this point, a Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was just it's just amazing what they done. Why? Because Square Enix makes sure that they do not put out an unfinished game that would ruin their legendary reputation. So often fans get irritated when they would take so long to release a game, say Kingdom Hearts, for instance. I honestly, I'll admit, I was annoyed by that too, and I had low expectations when the game came out, but to their credit, as much as I don't like the game in terms of just excitement, the game is extremely solid. It had no bugs at all. The gameplay was solid as well. I mean, just overall solid game. It was a really great game experience, and especially when you compare it to the likes of Marvel Avengers and Cyberpunk. It was a great game overall, despite my thrill for the game. I would play that game way more than I would play Marvel Avengers and Cyberpunk. They at least gave me my money's worth in a game experience to that extent. Consequently, Final Fantasy VII was, to many, the best RPG game of the year, especially in this year's Game Awards, competing against the likes of many other great games put together, like titles such as Yakuza Like a Dragon, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royale, and Wasteland 3. It was even nominated for many other categories, including Game of the Year, and guess what? It damn sure deserves it. You see, when a company takes their time to develop a game to its minute detail, which results in a game experience that suspends your disbelief, they deserve much more praise. When a game you have been waiting for is rushed and sold by developers with the lack of care and consideration for its fan base, that deserves to be verbally punished by those who spent their hard-earned money, especially during this COVID era where people are losing jobs and the economy is down. And, for those who have that experience to get their mind away from all this madness, to be able to play hours of an experience only for it to be crashing, no. You invested in all this money, you deserve to be punished, and they demand better. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I would consider, and it is an example of a cash grab. That, to me and many, is the most unethical form of business a company can do in any industry. How can you even try to defend companies that would do that to you? And the even sad part about it is that there are fans who try their hardest to defend this game. Why? It's not because there's something to like, which in every game, if you cherry pick and every single little good thing about it, you'll try to defend it as a totality. No, the overall game is bad, regardless of what. I'll make a wrestling reference here. The WWE is god awful. There are other people who would try to defend it, even the littlest of things, and use that as the overall defense. No. This is just something that happens all the time, and there's a reason for it, and I'll explain it. I believe it is more to do with people not wanting to believe that they invested in something that was bad or is considered bad, so they will defend it to the fullest because it makes them feel like that. They were wrong in the eyes of their peers who they believe looks at them as a trusted figure. This is nothing more than an example of confirmation bias. Basically, confirmation bias, if I could give an example, I'll give an example. WWE. I could give a political example about this because it's been seen many a times through that. But WWE is a company that is doing wrong in so many levels, yet people try to defend it and justify it because they are fans that don't want to know or don't want to have the reality of knowing that they're supporting a bad product. I'll just stop there because I can go into politics about this very easily, but confirmation bias is something that has been done heavily this year, not just in the gaming world, not just in the wrestling industry, but everywhere from politics and on. And that is something that we all need to realize, that at the end of the day, good is good and bad is bad. And if you continue to support bad, it will never be good. You have to have more demand for good, for great, for absolutely excellent. That's how we grow and that's how we become better. But if you settle for that because of your ego or whatever like that, nothing's going to change. That's just the reality of it. The reality also is that you as a gamer, and especially a consumer, deserve the best your money has to offer. If you spend money on a game or product that claims it will give you the best quality possible, then it is your right to demand it. If it does not happen, it is not your fault. You should understand that. You should not be the one embarrassed for relying on a game or a product that is supposed to be an epic experience for you. It is, in fact, the games companies and the developers that should be embarrassed and should be the ones who own up to that mistake. Now, with that said, credit to CD Projekt Red for at least owning up to their mistakes and addressing the issue with a refund, despite reports saying that getting a refund may not be as easy as they are making it. But at least they're addressing it, unlike other major companies such as 2K Games when they released that god-awful WWE 2K18 game for the Nintendo Switch, which completely stopped them from making future Nintendo Switch games under the 2K banner. And to some extent, that was a third-party company that made that. Blind Squirrel was responsible for a lot of the issues that happened with that game. So they kind of subcontracted a company to handle the Switch part instead of them handling it themselves. So that was part of the problem with that. And then you had 2000 what was it, WWE 2K20 that led the company Ukes leaving their company mid-production. Ukes, who is now working on the AEW wrestling game coming out sometime in the near future. Or Crystal Dynamics with Marvel Avengers, who at this time still patching that game up and not admitting that they've messed up or did wrong. This is the part that burns me up, is when you hear all these complaints about about the problems, but like I said, to CD Projekt Red, they've owned up to it. They are looking to fix it despite everything that's happening. Meanwhile, Crystal Dynamics, Marvel Avengers, if you go on their Twitter, they never say I'm sorry. They never say corporate companies have this rule, this unwritten rule, that they are not supposed to apologize. They're supposed to overlap the apology and in turn try to find more solutions than admittance of failure. And as they do that, they will gloss over any of the real issues that is going on and just say, we thank everybody for, giving suggestions and all that stuff. And instead of, I'm sorry, we screwed up, we're going to do what we can to fix it. That business practice needs to end. Game companies need to be so much more upfront. And while I'm saying this, I want to give a big shout out to Mike Herman of Retrosoft Games for keeping us in the loop of the Retro Mania wrestling game on his YouTube page, telling us everything from the achievements and improvements to even the failures and the glitches that is going on in the process of creating that game. It takes a lot to do that. And this man, to his credit, is out there showing us everything. The curtain is being pulled. And to those fans who, it's, you damn if you do, if you damn if you don't. You got to really look at that and give praise to that. When you see a game like Cyberpunk 2077, which is a big budgeted game that they spent millions of dollars of hiring, casting, and creating to do, only, or even Avengers, that the same, only to BS you throughout the whole process. Retrosoft Studios is not doing that. This is a small indie group that doesn't want to mess up, that wants to be honest with you. We don't get companies like that, and that needs to be commended. So definitely take that into consideration for that, because people definitely deserve to be told the truth and to be straight up. And I think in that case, you will have more support that way. Now, granted, there's always going to be trolls and assholes and dumbasses throughout this whole thing. But screw them. Those are a minority of people right out there. There's always going to be a vocal minority out there. Now, hopefully, because of this exposure, this media exposure of this game, this will force game developers and game companies to handle things better. If it even means taking as long as they can to bring out a game. And I get it. They have a lot to handle in terms of stockholders and deadlines that could affect their sales and their value to that extent. And let us not forget the COVID-19 factor of this whole thing, which in some cases did affect some companies, but at the same time it didn't, because a lot of companies have been working at home. Indie companies especially have been more successful in this case because they work at home. And that is something that, is something to consider. This is a case-by-case basis. Doesn't mean every company is going to do the same way. But I guess the moral of this entire segment may just resolve around patience. Yes, we customers want what we want, but sometimes what they want may not be what they should have right now. And for all of those game developers, take a lesson from companies like Square Enix, which, by the way, was only the publisher of Marvel Avengers and not the developers. Because honestly, I believe that if that was the case, that they were the developers of this game, we would have seen actually a much better game in terms of quality of care, art design, and solid gameplay. But we would have also gotten the game at the right time, when the game was truly ready to be released. Companies like Square Enix truly care about their intellectual properties, but also their dedicated fan base too. Honestly, I feel bad for Square Enix and Marvel in all of this for that particular game, as they trusted the company. And let me just say this: Crystal Dynamics is not a bad company. They've had many great success before. This is the same company that gave us Tomb Raider. Not only the past Tomb Raider games, but the recent Tomb Raider games, which I actually liked. I really enjoyed the remake of Tomb Raider that they had with the new Lara Croft and all this stuff. They did a great job with that. This may have just been too big for their britches in this case. But, as a brand like Square Enix and Marvel in this, to trust a company and to care about their brand and their major franchise, and as a result of it, turned out to be a rushed, glorified, online reliant mobile game, I really feel bad for them. They took a chance on it, and unfortunately, now granted, with that said, kudos to Nintendo for getting Marvel Ultimate Alliance, as we all kind of knew that game was going to be the better game regardless. Love that game. So I mean, it's not a total loss. If you're a Marvel fan, if you own a Nintendo Switch, you definitely still have an option to play a really good Marvel game. You have Marvel Ultimate Alliance if you have that complete Marvel Avengers experience from a comic book standpoint. And then you have Spider-Man Miles Morales, which made Marvel Avengers look insanely bad in comparison. I mean, insanely bad. And both in PS4 and PS5 version. Just insanely bad. Like, I can't wait to play more Spider-Man Miles Morales on a PS5. That's going to be insane. So to all of those major companies and even indie developers out there, just take your time and not fall into the pressure of the fans, or even to some extent the stockholders if they can. I can't speak on that behalf because I kind of get an idea what that entails, but it's a stressful thing. I get it, but we should be far removed from the Paleolithic era of the Atari ET game, where Howard Scott Warshaw was rushed by Steven Spielberg to get this game out, only for it to be a legendary mess of a game. We know better, and therefore we should do better as a result. So, folks, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. That'll do it for this edition of Select Start. I hope you guys enjoyed everything about this. And as I'm saying this right now, this will be the last podcast of the holiday season, because I am going to take a break next week. It's going to be Christmas. I'm just going to enjoy myself with the PlayStation 5. I'll definitely have games near the end, but the next episode will be the following week, which will be covering my top 10 best games of 2020. So we'll cover that, and then also for the Prime show, it's just going to be the best of 2020 in general. So games will be voted by our ACMG Facebook group, and I will read off the results of that as well and give my thoughts to that as well. So we do this every year. This will be no different. So, and in fact, there may be some new categories added this year as a result, including like new streaming network of the year, because of COVID, that's been a heavy focus on people's form of entertainment and sanity for this year. So that will be added on as well, as amongst other elements is best anime, comic, movie, game. Movie is going to be interesting. Movies is going to be interesting because, and that's another reason why I'm waiting till after the fact to do this, because there's, Wonder Woman 84 comes out, and the Disney Pixar movie Soul is coming out, and I'm very interested in checking that out as well. So we will talk about all that after the Christmas holiday. So stay tuned for all that and much more. And again, thank you to everybody who has been supporting, and all of our new listeners, especially, who's been supporting this. You can check it out and subscribe and download to all of your favorite platforms such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, and TuneIn, aka Amazon Music. You can also go to TalkTimeLive.com where you can check out every episode and especially our exclusive interviews with some of the best and finest in all of your favorite fandoms there. So, with that said, I wish everybody a great holiday season. Merry Christmas to everybody. And again, to all of our military, our essential workers, our frontline workers, our healthcare staffs out there. Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you for all that you've done. You have been the true heroes of this COVID era and everything that's been going on. You deserve everything that you get and deserve, and I hope only the best for you all. Thank you. That'll do it for me, folks. On behalf of myself, this is Dak Xavier Josiah saying, learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. I am out of here. Happy holidays, folks. Music for this episode is provided by Game Chops. Check out these great chiptune tracks and more at music.gamechops.com.